Welcome to episode 39 of ECTEL Bytes. The show is a production of the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority, and I'm your host, Coretta Cook-Strauss, ECTEL's Communications and Media Relations Manager. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we continue our very special series exploring the results of the Digital Inclusion Survey report conducted by ECTEL in collaboration with the OECS Commission under the World Bank-funded Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, or the CARDIT. The survey was administered across ECTEL's 5 contracting states, that's the Commonwealth of Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So earlier this year, the Digital Inclusion Survey report was launched publicly, presenting the findings for the ECTEL member states as a whole. Over the next couple of weeks, we will take a deeper look at the performance of each member state. Last week, we started with the Commonwealth of Dominica. So today, joining us once again is Grace Herman Jules. She is the research analyst. Did I get that correct? Yes. Research analyst at ECTEL in the Department of Economics and Finance. Welcome back, Grace.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So just in case they missed the show last week, just tell us a bit about what you do at ECTEL.
Okay. As Carissa mentioned, my name is Grace Herman Jules. I'm the research analyst with ECTEL. I have been the research analyst for the past 8 years, and my role involves conducting research and analysis. I also work closely with the members of the team to produce the ECTEL annual sector review report. We also compile ICT indicators. We coordinate surveys such as the Digital Inclusion Survey. I am pleased to be here to discuss the findings that relates to the Spice Isle of the Caribbean, Grenada.
Awesome. So before we get into Grenada's results, just remind us why ECTEL decided to undertake such an important survey at this time.
Well, the Digital Inclusion Survey was undertaken to provide an updated, comprehensive picture of how households, as well as individuals, access, use, and afford ICT and broadband services. The survey also looked at the barriers they face and the levels of digital literacy, as well as skills across ECTEL member states. The last comparable survey was conducted in 2014. So this exercise was long overdue, especially given how rapidly the digital landscape has changed.
Okay. All right. So let's dig in now. So focusing on Grenada, can you share the sample size and the key demographic characteristics?
Well, in Grenada, the data was collected for 760 households, with an even split between urban as well as rural areas, 51 to 49%. And at an individual level, approximately 1,800 persons were surveyed, a near equal distribution for female, 51%, actually female 49%, male 51%. The survey also had an excellent response rate of 98%. That means those persons that were approached, they completed the survey. 98% completed the survey.
And those numbers sound very similar to what you told us about Dominica.
Similar. Well. Dominica was 97,
right,
and Grenada is 98.
Okay. So on the last show, we learned that the survey was structured in 2 parts for household and individuals. So let's start with households. What are the key findings from the survey as it pertains to the household level in Grenada?
Yeah. So given the survey included over 80 questions, there was a lot of information to explore. So as you indicated, we'll start with household connectivity. So we'll first look at traditional media, and we realized that ownership of traditional media declined over the last 10 years. Household radio ownership, it fell from 81.6% to 48.4%, while television ownership, though it remained relatively high, only declining by 2% to 2 percentage points to 81.7%. So, but unlike the other member states, IPTV is the most popular television service in Grenada, accounting for 62% of subscriptions. As we can see with our everyday lives, many households are moving away from fixed lines. Households with fixed telephone lines declined from 45% in 2014 to 30% during the survey period. while there are at least one mobile phone. 93% of households had 91%, sorry, in the last survey had a mobile phone. Only 93, it rose by only 2% to 93% that have mobile phones, at least one mobile phone in the household. So while almost 42% of households reported not owning ICT devices, the laptop remained the most common device, with 40% of persons indicating that they had owned a laptop, followed by tablets with 39%. Only 5% of households reported owning only desktop computers. So we can see the changes that have happened in terms of ICT devices and traditional media devices over the last 10 years.
And that statistic sounds similar, if I remember, to Dominica for the device, the most popular one being the laptop, right?
The laptop,
Okay.
yes, followed by very closely by tablets. That was surprising for us to see how many people use the tablets.
Okay, all right.
In terms of broadband access, we realize that access to broadband service is critical in today's environment. And in Grenada, Grenada has made significant progress over the last 10 years. In 2014, just over 40% of households had access to broadband services. This figure has increased to 86%, an increase of over 46 percentage points. So among households with children, over 15, access was even higher at almost 86%. So, but despite this growth, 14% of households still reported not having broadband access. And we now so why? What are the barriers to that? And we realized that they said that they have access available elsewhere. So that's 38%. Cost of the service was also a barrier, 26%. No electricity, surprisingly, 18%. And no perceived need was 16% of respondents, right? When we asked what would encourage the adoption, what would encourage a household to adopt it. So 28% indicated that the service should be more affordable. They were 12.5% said if Wi-Fi was not available elsewhere, then they probably would have adopted it. And notably, 20.5% said nothing would encourage them to adopt broadband at this time.
Yeah, I'm always tripping over the number of people who are not utilizing and the reasons. So yes. Okay.
So we now turn our attention to affordability. On average, in the Grenadian households, they reported spending $133.95 on fixed broadband services, $91 on prepaid mobile plans, and $70 on postpaid mobile plans.
These figures seem less than Dominica, am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
They are.
Okay.
So overall, broadband services were not widely viewed as affordable, particularly mobile broadband. While 65% of households felt that mobile voice were affordable, 45% felt the same about mobile broadband. They didn't think it was affordable. 58.1% also believed that fixed broadband services were not affordable. So perceptions of affordability, they viewed it as not widely affordable, for these services. In terms of quality of service, quality of experience issues, the households identified when choosing the provider, understanding broadband speeds, complaint resolutions. The most widely reported issue was slow browsing speed.
Again, that sounds like the same thing in Dominica.
Same thing.
Okay.
But the reasons but I think one of the reasons that Grenada indicated was depletion of credit, as also that was the one that was different. The depletion of credit was one of them. The rest was the same. No broadband service, no network access, and speed tests not matching the advertised download speeds.
All right, so let's turn the spotlight now on the individual findings. When we focus on the individual respondents in Grenada, what stands out most from the survey?
Okay. So let's begin with device ownership and use. So we see that mobile ownership is widespread in Grenada, with 97% of respondents reporting that they own a mobile phone. So it's almost universal. So ownership was slightly higher among females, 88.4%, than when males, which was 85.8%, right? In terms of use, so it's not only ownership, it's good that we own it, but we want to know that you use it. So in terms of use, 88.7% of respondents reported they had used their mobile phone in the last 3 months. This figure is slightly higher than ownership, which suggests that they have some individuals, though they have access to a mobile phone, they probably do not personally own the phone.
Okay.
Yeah. So among mobile phone owners, 95.8% indicated that they owned a smartphone. That's a significant increase from 54.1% in 2014. So smartphone ownerships was high across both genders, almost 96% for both males and females.
Okay.
Yeah. For those who do not own a smartphone, the main reason cited for not owning a smartphone, again, lack of perceived need and the cost of a smartphone. In terms of how, what subscription service that they use, prepaid mobile service remained the most common subscription type, with 73.8% of respondents using prepaid mobile plans, compared to 25.8% of postpaid that indicated that they use postpaid plans.
Okay.
So we see that over the last 10 years, there's been a notable growth, however, in postpaid subscriptions from 4% 10 years ago to nearly 26%, right? While prepaid usage is still dominant, it declined from 82.2% in 2014 to 73.8%. So we see that though prepaid plan subscriptions is dominant, postpaid has been increasing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So while about 37% of respondents reported not using any ICT device other than mobile phone in the last 3 months, tablet was particularly high in Grenada, reported by 47% of respondents, including those over the age of 50. So I remember in the last for Dominica, you asked about who.
Yes.
So even those persons who, even those over the age of 50, they have a high rate of tablet use as well. So laptops were second most commonly used device at 25.7%. So everybody has a mobile phone, but you realize that following that is tablets as well as laptops.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And these devices were used mainly for social media, as well as for messaging, online banking, purchasing of goods and services online.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question, and I'm not sure if the survey would have done it, but in terms of social media, did we find out if they were just consuming it or were they like content creators? Did we go that deep or not really?
To me, it's not that deep, but social media, sending messages and stuff like that. So then I think it would be more
consumption
more
of
of
it
consumption and not, because when we go into the skills and we look at if most persons are at a basic level and not even an intermediate, we'd have to assume that it is.
Okay, right.
Yes.
Thanks.
So in terms of mobile broadband internet use, we're very interested in that. So in 2024, 96.3% of mobile phone owners reported using their mobile phone to access the internet, compared to just 55 10 years earlier. This highlights a significant growth in mobile internet use and confirms that mobile phones are the primary way that people access the internet in Grenada. So when asked how they access mobile broadband, so similar to Dominica, 51% reported using Wi-Fi only, 25.7% reported they use mobile data only when Wi-Fi is not available.
Of course.
And 6.5% relied on prepaid mobile internet service, and 11.3% used postpaid mobile internet plans. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
When we looked at internet use, we looked at activities of what person, the report looked at internet use. So what you use the internet for, looked at activities, we looked at barriers, also barriers to what's preventing internet use. And we found that 91.6% of respondents reported using the internet from any location. So it didn't, no matter home, school, public, they reported using it from any location, and that's up sharply from 51% the previous survey, right? Internet use was reported most frequently though at home. So you'd expect that at almost 95%, followed by work, 41%, public and community access points, 26%, and other persons own 24%. So we find that it's around we use the internet everywhere that we have access, right?
Yes.
So 93.7% of internet users reported going online at least once a day, right? We know this. So while 5.6% use the internet only once a week. Common activities, as we mentioned, included communication, accessing information, and some e-commerce and online transactions. Most respondents access the internet using their mobile phone. As I indicated previously, Wi-Fi, most persons use their Wi-Fi. A smaller share use tablets, laptops, or desktop computers, ranging from between 9% to 11%. Just a small portion. That's how they access. The internet.
Okay.
Most internet users, 71% reported not making any purchases online. That's almost 72% said they purchased nothing online.
Oh, wow.
But those who did purchase, 23% purchased, as we know, clothing, footwear, accessories, and they mainly use debit cards, credit cards, and actually 19% indicated cash on delivery.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe there's a service that does that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. Okay.
So the main barriers to e-commerce included lack of internet access, preference for shopping in person, lack of confidence, knowledge, or skill. That's 9%, indicating that they lack the confidence, knowledge, and skill to use that survey.
Right.
So about 8.4% of respondents were not using the internet for the last 3 months, mainly due, again, lack of perceived need, 40%, lack of skill, 26%, and the high cost of mobile services, which is just 9%.
Right.
So you can see why persons are not using. Those persons who are not using, you can see why they're not using. Lack of skill, lack of perceived need.
Okay.
Yeah. So that brings us into ICT skills. So the survey revealed that digital skills remain limited in Grenada. 5.4% of respondents reported having at least one basic ICT skill beyond using social media. 14% reported intermediate digital skills, but only 2% indicated having advanced ICT skills, such as computer programming, coding. So that's one area that we need to look at.
Clearly, yeah. This is even less than Dominica, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Well, almost
I think Dominica was like 3 or 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did ask about cybersecurity. So reports of cybersecurity incidents were relatively low. Only 7.4 respondents indicated that they had experienced an incident in the last 3 months. These incidents involve mainly fraudulent emails, hacked accounts. So if you want to know more information on the types of incidents, the responses available, this is available in the full report, which can be found on our website. So,
okay. The survey also examined progress toward ICT-related Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. How is Grenada performing in these areas?
Okay. So using the survey results, along with information that we collect annually from the service providers, ECTEL examined the progress towards five sustainable development goals, which are most closely linked to ICT. Overall, the findings indicate that Grenada is performing well in several key areas. So in terms of ICT coverage and access, Grenada performs strongly. Mobile network coverage is widespread, and a high proportion of the population is using the internet, placing the country well above the global average and close to universal usage targets. So Grenada performs well in ICT adoption, particularly mobile phone and smartphone ownership. So another positive finding that we found, not only for Grenada, but for the rest of the member states, was gender parity. The survey shows that there's no gender gap in terms of internet usage, in terms of mobile phone ownership. In fact, women in Grenada are slightly more likely than a man to own a mobile phone and use the internet, which compares favorably with global trends where gender divide still exists. So there's no gender divide in Grenada, right? However, the results also highlight areas of improvement. So one of the significant gaps relates to ICT skills, as we mentioned. While most people are comfortable using the internet for communication and social media, far fewer have the intermediate and advanced skills that's required for a digital economy, right? Such as creating digital content, using more technical tools like the programming, the coding, and all that. We're very much lacking in this area. In addition, while current mobile and broadband infrastructure is strong, we find that we don't have, in the Caribbean, we don't have next generation technologies like 5G that has not been deployed, which is consistent not only in Grenada, but across the ECTEL member state. Finally, in terms of ICT use continues to grow, and the survey points to the emerging trend around electronic waste. So we also, in the report, there's also a section for electronic waste. So you'll find out what people think about it, and how they dispose of electronic devices and stuff like that. So persons could just go and delve deeper into that. But although disposal rates are currently relatively low in Grenada, increased device ownership means stronger policies and systems for e-waste management may be needed going forward. Right? So overall, the findings suggest that Grenada has continued investment in digital skills, advanced infrastructure, and sustainable ICT practice will be essential to fully achieve the ICT-related SDG goals.
Okay, thanks for that, Grace. So as we wrap up, finally looking ahead, what are the steps, again, ECTEL in using the results to advance digital inclusion in Grenada and across the region?
Well, ECTEL intends to use the survey results to guide policy decision, support targeted interventions in those areas, especially where we see the gaps, to track progress over time, because we know that we've seen what happened in 2014, we've seen what happened in 2024, and the next survey will also track how well we are doing, where the gaps are. Also ensuring that digital inclusion efforts across Grenada and the region are evidence-based and exclusive. So it's not like a hearsay, but we have the data, reliable data, to make these informed decisions.
Excellent. Okay, so it's rapid fire time again. And don't overthink. Android or Apple?
Android.
That was fast. What's your power song? What song gets you going if you're in a funk?
If I'm in a funk, it wouldn't be a gospel song. It would have to be something uplifting, but it depends on what exactly.
Yes. Okay, that's understandable. What keeps you grounded?
My family.
Okay. What's your spirit animal?
A panda.
Okay, all right. And then finally, jeans or athleisure or gym clothes, which one you prefer?
Athleisure.
Okay. All right, there you go. Didn't overthink it. All right, so thank you so much, Grace, for presenting on the Digital Inclusion Survey for Grenada. And the findings provide important evidence to guide policy and program development. And what I gathered from our conversation, Grace, is that ECTEL and all stakeholders must now focus on translating these insights into targeted, high-impact interventions to really close the digital divide in Grenada and across the member states. So thank you for being our guest.
Thanks for having me.
And remember, all the results, you could find the report on our website, which is www.ectel.int. So please visit and dive in. So in case you joined us late, our very special guest was Mrs. Grace Herman Jules, the research analyst in the Economics and Finance Department at ECTEL. If you have any questions, again, leave them in the comment section and we'll be happy to reply. And apart from being on Facebook, the recording of ECTEL Bytes will also be on YouTube, which is at ECTEL. It will be on X, LinkedIn, and Instagram as well, which is at ECTEL Authority, and on our website, www.ectel.int. So please share with your contacts who are not on social media. So for episode 40, we're going to do a deep dive into the results for St. Kitts and Nevis. So make sure you tell somebody in St. Kitts to join us for that show and listen out for the other shows coming up as it pertains to what the DIS results reveal. So that's it for episode 39 of ECTEL Bytes. I'm your host, Coretta Cook-Strauss, ECTEL's Communications and Media Relations Manager. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again virtually very soon. Take care.